It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future. It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. My name is Mama D.
And I am Sister Tasha. And this is the Africa Must Unite podcast. We are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.
Yay, and we're at it again, Tasha. We're at it again.
For the month of September.
That's right. Yay. And Tasha, we have some very important historic dates in the month of September. And as always, we're going to start with those dates. On the 1st of September, we have Muammar Gaddafi leads successful coup in 1969. On the 2nd of September, Ho Chi Minh, revolutionary leader of the Vietnamese struggle, died in 1969. On the 3rd of September, Samir Amin, African Marxist, born in 1931. And you know, Tasha, he wrote this nice book. It's the same title as Nkrumah's book, Class Struggle in Africa, but it's a real short, not really a book, but pamphlet. It was made into a pamphlet. It was an article, but very, very good in terms of how we have to move forward.
Okay.
On the 4th of September, U.S. and South Africa adopt a strategy to subvert the revolutionary movements of South Africa while they sat in Switzerland in 1976. So plotting in favor of apartheid instead of in favor of revolutionary movement. On the 6th, J.A. Rogers, African historian, born in 1883. And on the 9th, Mao Zedong, revolutionary founder of the Chinese Communist Party, died in 1976. On the 11th, Chile's socialist government falls to U.S.-led fascist coup. President Allende and thousands of others were killed. That was in 1973. On the 12th of September, Amilcar Cabral was born in 1924. And we stop and celebrate him because we always study and talk about him. And we did a calendar that kind of featured his quote about, there's an internal enemy and an external enemy. And we got to rid ourselves of the capitalist values too. Not just rid the economic system of capitalism. But, he's just a profound person that met with Kwame Nkrumah on a regular basis as he was helping to lead the struggle against the vicious Portuguese. So we celebrate Cabral on the 12th of September. Also, Steve Biko, revolutionary president of the Black Consciousness Movement, BCM, was killed by South African police 1977. And he was a young person when he got involved. And a few people that we even know, Tasha, have taken the name of Biko as their own name because of his important contribution to our people. And then on the 13th, Geronimo Pratt was born in 1947. And, Geronimo Pratt served 25 years in the U.S. prison system. He was a political prisoner. His time that he spent was based more on the kinds of things he was saying to try to organize our people than anything else. So he spent the years of 1972 to 1997 in U.S. prisons. And he said when he got out, this is what he said: "I want to remind all Africans, please come to Africa. It's right across the water. Come look at yourselves. Mama is waiting." He was so happy to go home, when he got out of that U.S. prison. So, and speaking of prisons, the capitalist governor, Rockefeller of New York, ordered troops on this same day, the 13th of September, ordered troops to fire on inmates at Attica Prison. 32 killed in 1971. And when you see the vicious film of that time, of what was happening inside the prison, they were making African men crawl on all fours like they were dogs and kicking them in the butt. It was It's crazy when you go back and look at that, the Attica prison situation. Horrible. On the 15th of September, Lamine Junghai, young pioneer and member of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, was born on this day in 1945. On this same day, racists bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 little African girls in 1963. On the 17th of September, Occupy Wall Street movement began on this day in 2011. And we remember that protest movement against economic inequality. On the 18th, my best hero and the person who we name our ideology after, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, revolutionary Pan-Africanist, was born in 1909. I've been thinking about him, Tasha, how young he was, I think, when he was, as some people said, murdered, but when he passed on, and just how much he did in his lifetime to try to help African people. Yes. On the 19th, the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, PAIGC, founded under the leadership of Amilcar Cabral in 1956. And then on the 23rd, African children, the Little Rock Nine, desegregated Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. It's a horrible way in which they were surrounded by those Europeans, weren't they, Tasha, and heckled and the guards, National Guards, had to follow them to class to protect them from these young students and parents. The parents agitating things.
Yeah, how could you learn that kind of environment?
It's horrible. On the 24th, Guinea-Bissau Independence Day is celebrated, and they got the independence in 1973. On the 25th, Eric Williams, African historian, born in Trinidad in 1911. He was the one who wrote, we still read that, Tasha, Capitalism and Slavery. And he taught us, in that book that capitalism gave rise to racism. Racism didn't give rise to capitalism. So he looks at what we do, the economic system, as the primary enemy. On this same day, armed struggle began in Mozambique in 1964. And on the 26th, Winnie Mandela, South African freedom fighter, was born in 1936. And we were just talking about her, Tasha, you and I, that the whole point that she kept the struggle going while her husband, Nelson Mandela, was in prison. He was in prison for 27 years. And during that time, she was out there, keeping everything alive, working with the youth and all of that.
Now that's really having somebody's back.
I'm telling you, that's a partnership there, isn't it?
Yes.
And we were talking about yesterday the whole point of we don't say enough about sisters who played and are playing a significant role in our whole liberation struggle. And Winnie Mandela comes to mind.
She does.
On the 28th of September, Guinea voted no to French colonialism in referendum in 1958. So Guinea said, if you want your freedom, you go ahead. To all its French colonies, it said, but we're going to strip you of everything. So Guinea, we'll talk about that in a little bit, went about politically educating its people and getting it ready. And when the vote came, the majority of people in Guinea said no. I forgot what it was, the exact quote, but we'd rather be slaves in our own land, or not slaves, but, be poor and all of that in our own land than slaves of the French. So, the only French colony that said no in 1958 and so got its independence. That's a beautiful thing. And and on the 30th, Botswana becomes independent in 1966. So those are some real important dates, in the month of September. And always we celebrate important dates for us as a people, but also important dates in terms of the contributions of other people, of other races who struggled for socialism, or what we say, the health and welfare of the people, and not for the profit of a few. So we got Ho Chi Minh on here. We had Mao Zedong. I mean, because, they're fighting for the interests of their people or the people, and not, just for the ruling class. So that makes a big difference.
Okay. All right, Mama D, all is here. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, we are focusing all this year, 2020, on revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations, those at home and those in a diaspora, whose objective is a unified socialist Africa. And why? Because we believe that our people should know about the organizations that are out there struggling to bring about a permanent solution to their exploitation and oppression. In Class Struggle in Africa, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wrote, quote, "The total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government must be the primary objective of all black revolutionaries throughout the world. It is an objective which, when achieved, will bring about the fulfillment of the aspirations of Africans and people of African descent everywhere," end quote. So these revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations, Tasha, that we've been highlighting all this year, 2020, are determined to work together in order to more effectively politically educate our people, and thus to more quickly bring into existence a unified socialist Africa. And all of that is because we want the wealth that's generated from the richest continent in the world, Africa, to be used for the benefit of all African people, no matter where they happen to be born or to live in the world. And so this month we continue by featuring the Pan-African Federalist movement of Nigeria.
Yes, and the Pan-African Federalist movement of Nigeria, their vision is actually a united Africa state. And they have three missions. Their missions are to explore for Nigerian people, irrespective of their religious, political, tribal, gender, and other differences, They are to re-educate and reappraise Nigeria people from mental slavery. I love that mission right there.
Yes.
And then to groom, to groom and to establish Nigeria people as qualified candidates for the United Africa States. So a little bit more information about the Pan-African Federalist movement. So, Mama D, this movement right here does an awesome job of talking about socialism and talking about what they can do as a group. So the Nigeria evolved to address issues and problems foiling the quest for a united Africa state under the auspices of patriotic and honest-minded individual leaders. The Pan-African Federalist Movement, Nigeria, as a group, seeks to use Nigerians as knights that can profess the struggle for the United Africa State. These knights are groomed to make a difference in the world that is so much in need of a few good men and women who will confront the difficult problems, begging for solutions in Africa and across the black world. I love that they included women, men and women. Yeah. Black Nigerian knights are the men and women who will make this difference. As patriots, they will give their all to see that the African Renaissance in this century becomes evident to all the United African Federalist States is established in less than a generation. So, Mama D, this organization is on and moving.
And I like their vision.
Yes.
A unified, united Africa. And those, oh yeah, and the missions too.
Yes, especially when they say re-educate, because that is something that we have to do. We have to actually re-educate our people, our youth, so that they know exactly like the reality of what we're living in this capitalist society right now.
That's true. That is actually true, because when you talk about capitalism today, you're talking about worldwide capitalism, global capitalism that dominates all over the world, And so this organization is beautiful, and what you just read, Tasha, is what they submitted to our calendar 2020, and we were looking forward to having them be a part of this month's podcast, but they could not, unfortunately. We know the many things that are going on in Nigeria and throughout our continent, and so we understand completely. But we thought we would take the time to talk about something that is happening here in the U.S., in capitalist U.S., and really that happens throughout the world, and that is the vote. And the whole meaning of voting, and why, that becomes important and what it's all about. And I think you have some information on that, Tasha.
Yes, it is election time, people. And during this time, there's a lot of things that's going on. So we just wanted to kind of give a piece of political education from our Pan-African Socialist Revolutionary Party standpoint.
Yes.
So most people think, and this is from Umia Abdul-Jamal, most people think of politics in a very limited way. They think of election day or a certain political campaign. Politics doesn't mean pulling a lever or poking our slots in a ballot. It means to exercise your power for your belief and your benefit, and nothing at all. That's it.
That's important.
Everybody
yes.
should have this right.
Yes, that's so important, because why else are you voting if it's not going to benefit you?
Right. That makes no sense at all.
Mm-mm.
So, to vote is the responsibility and duty of all eligible persons to participate in the democratic administration of any society. In a true democracy, though, Mama D, one must consider the various issues that need to be addressed and solved by only the citizens of that particular nation. But incumbent in that process is the opportunity to hear and assess all options placed before society in order to choose what is best for the collective. And when we say collective, Mama D, we're talking about everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So to vote is to choose someone who represents your best interest. African people are voting under a capitalist society. That's just the plain truth. A society of economic greed in which the decisions are made for and by a few, not the majority.
That's right, the rich.
Yes. Those few are the wealthy, just like you just said, Mama D, and the wealthy ruling class. So therefore, when those decisions are being made, they are not in the best interest of those particular. Okay, African people are voting under a capitalist society, a society of economic greed, in which the decisions are made for and by a few, not the majority. Those few are the interests of the ruling class. Therefore, when those decisions are being made, they're in the best interest of the ruling class, their needs and their wants, excluding, excluding African people and people that are poor.
Yes.
Lucy Park said it the best. She said, never be deceived that the rich will allow you to vote away their wealth. Now, who does that leave us to vote for, Mama D?
That's true, because we have to have some good choices up there, and we don't get a chance to put our candidate up.
Right. So we're going to have to figure out some kind of way to attack this issue. Mm-hmm. So to attack this issue will be clearly to organize. Organization is the key. It is important to start at the grassroots level so African people can have political participation and representation at every level leading up to the vote. Grassroots organizations will provide the necessary political education to all in the community so that everyone truly understands the capitalist system in which we live. And then finally, of course, I have to say this quote from W.B. Du Bois. He said, I shall not go to the polls. I have not registered. I believe that the democracy has so far disappeared in the United States that no two evils even exist. There is but one evil party with two names, and it will be elected despite all I can say or do.
That's a powerful, powerful quote. That is really powerful. And it's a difficult one. And we're going to talk about that difficulty that we have as African people or poor people, people of color. But, our focus is African people. And how, this is a difficult decision to make in terms of the question of to vote or not to vote. But we just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about those places in the world that show us and showed us, put the D on it, showed us how you really have to have the people's participation and decision making about anything that goes on in the society from a grassroots level. So you're not just once or twice a year, as Mumir talks about, going somewhere and pulling the lever and saying, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one is better than the other? Even though it may be, Tasha, right? It may be that neither one of them best represents your interests, right. It's just that these are the selections we have based on the money that you have to have in a capitalist reality to even run for president. So, that excludes many, many, many people right there. So these countries that we're going to mention, places in the world, clearly were struggling for socialism. I mean, their whole existence was to better the health and welfare of their people living in their society. And if you have that interest, and not just Tasha, as we always talk about, and you just mentioned, not just making profit for a few, those rich, those in the ruling class, but you're thinking about all of your people in the society, then you want them to be involved in a decision-making process from the things in their community and neighborhoods, all the way up to who's going to be the president or who's going to be the leader that best represents them. So we just wanted to take time to highlight 3 different places: Guinea, Cuba, and Vietnam. Now, these countries that we are talking about, some of them we're going to show, that they struggle for grassroots participation While when they first came on board, like with Guinea, when Guinea freed itself from French colonialism, and Sekou Touré and the PDG party, Democratic Party of Guinea, began working for their people. Or when you talk about Cuba, you can talk about, in the 1990s or beyond, from early on when they first began and got their independence in 1960s all the way up through the 1990s, and still struggling today. Or when you talk about the Vietnam and the struggle of the Viet Cong to overcome massive bombings and all that were going on, especially when the U.S. joined in and began to try to subjugate the Vietnamese people. So these are the three examples we want to use. And we can start with Guinea. And the Democratic Party of Guinea saw from the beginning Guinea as a country in which the people are supreme and where there can be said to be mass participation in government at all levels. And so, Tasha, the villages of Guinea were transformed into rural communes administered by councils of 5 to 15 members elected for a 5-year term. And even the council presidents were named village chiefs. And then, the PDG, the Democratic Party of Guinea, was convinced that development must be both planned and implemented by the people themselves and at a pace which the people determine. So you ain't got nobody outside of you coming telling you what to do. It's the people making decisions. And according to the government, development is not only harmonious and balanced, but it is absolutely independent and based solely on the will of the people. This is what Guinea proclaimed and worked for, and for the people's exclusive benefit. And in their documents, it says self-reliance is key. We can never build a man's or woman's happiness without their own participation. Isn't that something? Self-reliance must operate at all levels, from the village to the national level. So these are not people going out twice a year to pull a lever. These are people, on an everyday reality or everyday basis, making decisions for themselves, about what's best for themselves. And that's what you talk about when you're thinking about a society run for the health and benefit of the people. And the last thing I want to mention in terms of Guinea is that, a part of their documents too was this quote: "In all things, the happiness and well-being of the people must come first." And that's the kind of society that you want to live in, isn't it, Tasha?
Yes, it is. That sounds good. And then, of course, if I'm going to benefit from it, I'm going to work hard to get what I need for my people.
That's an important point. If you think this society is not working for you or not working in your best interest, you're just going to sit down and not do anything. You know what I mean? You're going to go to the bathroom and take bathroom time a lot because it's, because it's not in your interest at all. And Cuba is another one. When you look at what Cuba tried to do from the very beginning, and it struggles still, when it brings young people from around the world to come and study to be doctors. I mean, they're still doing positive things for the people and struggling, to help out countries as they always have in Africa and elsewhere, in terms of trying to free themselves or medical help that they send to African countries and all. This is something that Cuba has always done. So there's a few things I think, Tasha, you wanted to mention about how Cuba deals with grassroots organizing.
Yeah, so Cuba actually utilized the grassroots organizers to ensure that the community do get what they need.
Mm-hmm.
So they had popular councils. And so, for example, like on October 10th in 1990, Cuba's Organizing Commission announced that 93, Mama D, 93
Wow.
popular councils were being constituted in Havana.
And that's just one city in Cuba on this small island of Cuba. So, 93 is huge.
Yes, and what those councils did was they designed to fill the gap between the district, and then also they rekindled the activity community involvement in local problem solving. So those councils, they were like huge. They formed largely along the historic neighborhood lines, and they were composed of like actually elected delegates in the neighborhood. Yes, and so I think that's most important is because if you are living in the neighborhood, it's important that you have somebody that's representing you that knows what's going on in that neighborhood.
That's very important.
Yeah, so they had representatives from the area's committees in defense of the revolution, Women's Federation and trade unions, commercial networks, and they had any large enterprise and the health and education systems.
That's beautiful. So you got you got neighborhood people plus these other organized entities all coming together, putting their heads together to decide what's best for this neighborhood and all.
Yes. And the crazy thing about it is these are things that are going on like from within. So they didn't replace municipal assemblies, and they did not have much legislative power. They just decided to do this and work together as a collective. Yes, for their neighborhood. So that part right there was just awesome by itself. And then they also had national mass organizations, and they exercised a real influence over the policy formation. So their Cuba's national mass organizations included by importance the Central Organization of Cuban Trade Unions with its 19 affiliated unions, to which 96%, Mama D, I said 96%.
Wow.
That's almost all of the Cuban workers that belong there. The committees in defense of the revolution, Cuba's bloc associations with another 6 million members. They had the Federation of Cuban Women, the Association of Private Farmers, and a series of youth organizations from the pioneers that made up young people through junior high to high school students and university students.
Wow. You see, you're trying to organize everybody to be a part, everybody of age, of a certain age, to be a part of the decision-making process. And, when we look at Vietnam, especially in their struggle against the powerful country of the U.S. in terms of all of its armed tanks and weaponry, and this was a struggling mainly agricultural place. And you say, well, the U.S. and secure its independence. Well, they had to have the people behind them. And to have the people behind you means that they know what's going on. They know who the enemy is. They know what's best for them. And that can only happen with grassroots organization. Isn't that right, Tasha?
Yes, because they all sharing the same ideology. They're all working together.
That's right. That is right. And, even I was trying to feature these organizations this whole year is an effort to bring us together, to work together so we can work toward that permanent liberation that we talk about. But the blueprint of the Viet Cong National Liberation Front and what they did is important to just mention a few things. They grew into a structure that reached to some degree virtually every village in Vietnam. And they set up a net of associations that operated over all of Vietnam and restructured the social order of the village and educated the villagers to control themselves. That's important, the villagers to control themselves. And what they did and we would talk about this often, is they set up a horizontal structure. So you're reaching people in social organizations, and a vertical structure when you talk about a more governmental kind of reality. So you're going from top to bottom, but side to side as well. And
Gotcha.
isn't that something? And the horizontal structure was reflected in the functional liberation associations that were created. And these included the Farmers Liberation Association, so people who were farmers, the Women's Liberation Association, the Workers Liberation Association, the Youth Liberation Association, the Student Liberation Association, the Cultural Liberation Association. So these social groupings, these were mass-based and social political, existing at the village level. All these functional liberation associations had the common objective of binding their members together for two purposes: to help one another and to engage in the political structure. And the principle of democratic centralism prevailed. And then the vertical structure, that's governmental. They were operating as a government, governing themselves during this struggle against the French and then the U.S. So they had an NLF, a National Liberation Front command structure, and that included national headquarters, national leadership, interzone, the special zone, the provincial zone, the district level, village level, cell structure, and the cadre. So that's like, we talk about, state and local. So that's more vertical, one on top of the other, that vertical structure. And then they had the horizontal structure. And for 4 years of tireless effort, from 1959 through 1962, they converted the National Liberation structure from a loose collection of dissident groups, often with nothing more in common than hostility against the U.S.-backed puppet, the Diem government, into a tightly knit movement able to demonstrate a coordinated efficiency rare in a developing nation. And this whole thing, the whole political education of the people and the organizing of the people on the grassroots level and all of that was done mostly by night in remote backcountry areas. And that's what makes it so impressive. While they were being bombed and Agent Orange dropped on them and all these things being done to them, they were steadily organizing village to village. That is tremendous, isn't it, Tasha?
Yes, and that takes a lot of perseverance. Yes, you're talking about down for the struggle. Yes, and they work together. I mean, I love the fact that you said when you talked about the farmers and the association workers, the students. I mean, when you think about that, they went from every age level and made sure everybody was included.
That's right. And I mean, that's important because even if you have some disagreement along the way and all of that, you at least were a part of this whole thing. And the majority, in democratic centralism and this whole business of democracy, supposedly the majority is what rules. And so, you might disagree about some things, but at least being a part of the process, why such and such thing was taken and who is the candidate that you want to vote for. All of these things by participating at a very grassroots level. So that has to be done. But we also talk about that's so important, but we always, Tasha, looking at what we think is a permanent solution.
All right. What is the solution? Well, Mama D, Malcolm X said that the only difference between the Republicans and the Democrats in this capitalist reality that we live in called the U.S. is the first is a wolf and the other one is a fox. Much better than the other.
No, they both dogs, in other words, in the dog family.
Right. Right. They're from the same family. How about that? Ultimately, we must get rid of the capitalist economic system and establish Pan-Africanism, a unified socialist Africa. But until that day, we have reached this. We have achieved Pan-Africanism. We must mobilize, organize, like the three organizations we've just talked about, and politically educate our people about our identity as African people, our enemy, capitalism, our objective of Pan-Africanism, and the best strategy and tactics to achieve this objective.
That's a real good point, because a lot of times in revolutionary organizations like ours, we don't talk enough about a quantitative buildup that leads to a qualitative change, reform leading to revolution. And we do still have to try to make any positive change that we can and to help us move forward until the day when we can have a unified socialist Africa. So this is why, we say the permanent solution for us as a people is a unified socialist Africa, because then we'll be able to stand up on our own feet and demand fairness. And that's the way that we have become truly and permanently liberated. But until that time, we can, like you said, Tasha, we can educate and mobilize and organize. We can do what Cuba, Guinea, and the Viet Cong did, the National Liberation Front did in terms of grassroots organizations. So that's important. And the thing is, another point that we want to make that's a very sensitive point is something that Cabral, elder of Cabral, mentioned to him as Amilcar Cabral was struggling for Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde and against the vicious Portuguese. Elder said to him once, and I quote, "Cabral, I pray every day for Salazar, who served as Prime Minister of Portugal," vicious person, while during the colonization of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. "I pray every day for Salazar not to die." And Cabral, a little flabbergasted, said, "Why, my elder?" And the elder said, "So that the struggle continues a while longer, so that Salazar continues obdurate, refusing to change, so that we should continue, so that we should know each other better." And that brings us, end quote, that brings us back to the quotes that you had mentioned earlier about Lucy Parsons, about, what did she say, Tasha? And people like Du Bois, who said, "I'm not going to vote." And Parsons saying, why are you voting if you're just voting for the rich? And even Martin Delaney, who has an important quote that talks about we should exercise the vote, the right of vote only if, it's going to bring some kind of relief to us. But we by no means care to cherish the privilege, this is a direct quote, this last part, of voting somebody into office to help to make laws to degrade us. And these people go back. Martin Delaney said that in 1852. Lucy Parsons was way back. I forgot her dates, Tasha. And of course, right. Du Bois, all of these people saying the same thing. And you and I were talking just this morning about what a dilemma. Because here in the U.S., under the Trump administration, people are really catching hell. People being evicted. You got coronavirus going on without a national plan to combat it. You got people dying, number one country now in the world of deaths per population. Is this great, rich, powerful, great only because it's rich and powerful, but not great in terms of helping its people. You got this country, this capitalist country that has no plan in place allowing over 200,000 people thus far to die. So you come up with a choice. We were talking about this, Tasha, between Biden and Trump. And you hear people talking, I don't like Biden. He's not, I don't like Biden. But I'm going to vote for Biden because he's better than Trump. So you see, it's a feeling, especially for African people who are struggling out here, that it's not much difference between the wolf and the fox. Voting one versus the other might not solve our problems, but you just want to get the wolf off your back. And so people just say, I want to go to the polls and vote out Trump. So, it's a big dilemma. And this is why, the statement on Salazar is one that's saying, if you keep somebody like Trump in, if you think Salazar was vicious, and you keep somebody like Trump in, maybe it'll keep us revved up as poor people, as African people, and we can really make significant change. But if you put Biden in, this is what that elder is kind of saying to Cabral. If you put somebody like Biden in, then he might make people think things are so much better. Things are better and we can relax. We get a reprieve, a respite. Is that the way you say it, Tasha? From Trump. And so we can breathe and go back to the way things were for us. Not so hard, not so vicious. And so the dilemma is what to do. Because you want people to move forward. You want them to stay engaged in the struggle and politically active. You don't want them to cool off and go back up in their houses and wait for the next cycle of exploitation and oppression to come. And, it's like we saw Katrina and what it did to our people. And we say, and then, then things go back like it was, I don't know if I'm making that clear, Tasha, if that's coming through real clear in terms of the choices that we have.
So, Mama D, we don't have great choices, is what you're saying.
Right.
We don't have the best. We have two candidates that's still practicing under the same system of capitalism. Where do we win?
Look, I could have saved all that talk and came right to you and let you put it just like that. How do you win? How do we win that way? So, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Because you do want relief for your people. You see them in the community struggling. We who are in the U.S., we see this snake operating in Babylon. It's a difficult time for our people. And you say, oh man, I sure would wish I could give them this or give them that. So you say we do want relief, and maybe Biden will bring a little bit of something to them. But at the same time, you say you want this whole capitalist economic system off the face of the earth. And you want an economic system that's humanist, collectivist, egalitarian to come into existence. And so, that's why we say the dilemma is there.
Yes. That makes so much sense, Mama D. So, it is time for voting. And, Mama D, I think we did a good job of showing those three organizations that exemplify how people can organize, educate, and control themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have a solution on what we can start doing.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And we can ready ourselves for any battle that we're about to face by getting ourselves organized. Again, Tasha, you bring us right back to the central point. So we hope this has been a discussion that can be talked about and discussed and thought about. as we get ready in this country and the U.S. To vote.
Yep.
There we go.
All right. So that is the end of our podcast. Thank you guys for listening. In subsequent months, at times with the help of invited other revolutionary guests, kind of like we had our featured guest for today, which was PAFM, the Pan-African Federalist Movement. Thank you for your article. But we will be discussing other various revolutionary Pan-African organizations that are struggling throughout the world to bring Pan-Africanism, a united socialist Africa.
Yes. And join us next month when we will be featuring our own organization. How about that, Tasha? The Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, PRSP.
Yes, PRSP. Yes. Meanwhile, please leave a comment on our Facebook page, visit our website, prspponline.org, or email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com, like us on soundcloud.com, or visit us on YouTube.
Okay, remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. And remember, a union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out.
We didn't vote to be colonized and enslaved. We didn't vote to be tamed. We didn't vote to suppress our rage and be trained. We didn't vote to be driven insane. We didn't vote to be disproportionately jailed. We didn't vote to be nailed to a cross daily and tragically killed. We didn't vote to be the guinea pigs for the birth control pill, or to be given syphilis by the soulless and denied medication while we lie ill. We didn't vote to be the first played, the last paid, and the last saved in the last days. We didn't vote to be stripped of our dignity and become afraid. We didn't vote to end fighting for liberty, for it is still necessary by any means. We didn't vote to temporarily camouflage our poverty in the stupidity of demonic dreams. And we didn't vote on the way reality is perceived, as so many of us seem to be seriously deceived. We only know what we're allowed to see, so sadly anything that's on TV is believed. We didn't vote to give the police the power to unleash a wrath that will slowly devour our people in a bloodbath, surrounding us with the reality of death until there's nothing left. Yeah, you do the math. We didn't vote to be this much miseducated. We didn't vote to be kidnapped, separated, and traded, segregated to be integrated. We didn't vote to have our sisters sexually violated. We didn't vote to have our brothers special educationally castrated, to have them both to be later incarcerated, incinerated, left totally devastated, almost dead, and forever looked upon by society as the most hated. We didn't vote. We didn't vote for the demonic blockade on Cuba. We didn't vote for the forced trumped up charges on Asada. Got these crackers so mad, only 90 miles from America, and they still can't fucking touch her. So you tell me who's freer? Now that's black power. We didn't vote. We didn't vote for the assassination of Malcolm and Chad, the torture of Abisu. We didn't vote for the lawful incarceration of Mumia. We didn't vote to sign his death warrant, so we can't just vote to stop them either. Wasn't it Malcolm who stated the ballad of the bullet? This last part about the bullet we must have forgot, because if Malcolm was alive, he wouldn't have hesitated this long to pull it. And most of these reactionary sidestepping motherfuckers would have gotten shot. Why? Cause we ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out.